Welcome, everybody, to the newest episode of All Things NBA from A to Z. I'm Chris Persian, and here alongside Zach Noble. Today is January 30th, and we've got a very important but simple agenda for today's episode. It's to discuss our all-star reserve teams for the 2024 NBA season. Now, it's time for Zach and I to give our personal picks, given who the starters are, of who we would have as the reserve. Before we get into it, what's going on, my dude?
Just plugging away, man. Nothing too crazy. I got the kids for a couple days. Wife's up in Toronto, so yeah, I'm locked in.
Well, don't run with scissors. Um, I don't think you'll burn the house down. I think you're more of a risk to than them. But that aside, where do
I
you want
am,
to
but
start? Something tells me you want to go with the Eastern Conference. I think you'll have a Celtics laden all-star lineup, if I know anything about you. So let's just start right there, man. Who
I'm
did
not
you
biased, man. I'm not biased. First of all,
who who you got?
I want to touch on the starters real quick. So, what did we have? It was Tatum, Giannis, Embiid. Who were the other two? Halliburton at the point guard.
Halliburton and Lillard.
Lillard. Okay, so my biggest beef, you're gonna appreciate this, like it's Brunson. He should be the starting point guard, but I mean, it is what it is. Um, it was one, games played, but two, regardless, stats, games played, all of that. I just think Brunson's more valuable on the better team. He's having the year. I like to give him the nod this year, but you could have Halliburton and Brunson too. I mean, they both deserved it over Dame, but then there's a debate for whoever else. Do you agree with that?
I mean, Brunson's played one more game than Dame. So, I don't think it's games
I'm
played.
talking with Halliburton games played.
Ah, I see. Well, he was always going to make it. The counting stats, the fan vote, he was always going to make it. I would have gone
What
Brunson
do you
over
think deserved it?
I would have gone Brunson over Lillard for sure. My starting backcourt would have been Brunson and Mitchell. Um,
Agreed. Yeah.
with
So I had.
Halliburton being the most important guy to get in as a reserve, but I would have had Brunson and Mitchell. I
All
think
right.
they
So
went
that
with the
that
two
leads us.
wrong guys.
Yeah. So that leads us. So Brunson Mitchell would be coming off the bench. They would be definitely in. And call me
Those
crazy
those
on.
those were my two guards for what it's
Okay.
worth in the Eastern Conference. My first two
There.
guards, Jalen Brunson, Donovan Mitchell.
Yep. So call me crazy on this. I don't think it's a debate in the East. Okay. I'm going to tell you my lineup here, and then everything else in the West, there's a lot more of a debate, and we'll get more into that. I'll give some shouts to some guys that deserved some nods, but there's no debate. I think it's just pretty concrete unless injuries or guys missing. So the other guys I'd add would be it would be Jalen Brown, Paolo Banchero, Bam Adebayo, Julius Randle, and so I'm one short, and that would be Tyrese Maxey.
Okay.
And if you disagree with that, you can go fuck yourself. Just kidding.
Am I good to disagree with that now?
I'm waiting.
So I think Julius Randle is one of the forward spots. Um, the games played, the counting stats, the averages, and the team success, it's all there. Now, for me, team success is more of an end of year awards factor than an all-star factor. But Julius Randle has the individual counting stats, plays in New York City, and is on a winning Knicks team. So to me, that's a factor. I also think for that reason, the Celtics are so good that you see how good Kristaps and Jalen Brown have been this year. One of the two should be an all-star. Me personally, I would go with Kristaps over Jalen Brown in my other forward spot, but I get the all-star game. I understand what it's about, and Jalen Brown is probably the better pick for the all-star game. So I would go Brunson, Mitchell. Then I'd go Brown and Randall, even though I'd want to go Kristaps over Brown. And with my wild card spots, I would go with the guard tandem of Tyrese Maxey and Trey Young. Trey Young in there because of, again, that consideration that team success is more about end of year awards, or end of year awards are more about team success, sorry, and that the All Star game is to have a fun game between all stars around the NBA with fun skill sets. And again, that even makes me kind of want to put Kristaps over Jaylen Brown. But if you look at if you know at the end of the episode, if we look at my two teams, I think it would be a more fun matchup if it was Brown over Porzingis. So I'll just side with him.
Okay, so you do agree with me somewhat there, but like the argument for Kristaps over Jaylen Brown, I mean, if you're going for a one game, sure you can say he's more valuable and been the better player, but he's only played in 33. That's literally 10 less than Jaylen Brown. Um,
Yep, that's why you just
my whole
gotta
thing,
lean Brown. Yep.
yeah, my whole thing is when the league is this good and this deep, guys will have their opportunities, but you got to earn it. Like nothing should be given to you, and these players value these nods, these awards, you can say, which they're maybe not necessarily an award, but the recognition here, they value it so much. So I think it is our duty to talk about them like it's something kind of serious, you know, as less serious as fans and people on Twitter may take it. The players take it seriously.
I didn't have Derek White on my ballot because I'm taking this seriously. You know what I mean? Every year,
Right.
last year it was Aaron Gordon, this year it's Derek White. Every year there's someone who is a top tier NBA player that season because they're performing at an A plus level in their role as a role player next to a bunch of stars. And they get all-star buzz from Twitter, which just shouldn't happen. So I don't have Derek White on my all-star team. I don't have like someone on my all-star team that I don't think should be an all-star. I've got, on top of the starters, I've got Brunson and Mitchell, the backcourt I thought should have made it. I've got Jaylen Brown and Julius Randle, who have the counting stats and a little bit of the team success factor, if you want to put that in there to say, hey, these guys are all-star forwards this year. And then I went with Maxey and Young because again, counting stats for those guys are big time. And also just Maxey, the storyline is good. Trey Young, always a big time star. And his game is conducive for the All-Star game environment. I like how this All-Star team looks as a whole.
So you left off Paolo or Bam?
Both.
But like that's illegal. I mean, it doesn't even fit in the parameters. Um,
How?
do you understand that? Because they go, it goes two guards, two front court players, and then it's like three wild cards. I thought.
I have Brunson and Mitchell in the guard spots, Brown and Randall in the two forward spots, and then in the two wild card spots, I have Maxey and Young.
All right, so you just think Trey Young's more valuable than Bam and Paulo, or what? Or just more exciting
I
and you'd
think
rather
this
see him in the
season,
game kind
yeah,
of thing?
it's team success is not as big of a factor for me for the All-Star game than it is for end of year awards. That's just the fact of the
Yeah,
matter for it. So for
I
me,
definitely.
Trey Young listen, it's not me saying, oh, it's a down season for the Hawks and for Trey Young. But I'm just gonna throw him in there because he has a fun game to watch. Like, no, Trey Young has way better counting stats than Paolo or Bam. Now I understand that both of those guys are on much better teams this season, but it's the All-Star game. I'm not as concerned with that as I am with a fun product for the fans. And Bam Adebayo is not as fun as Trey Young in an All-Star game. I'll bet you that.
Oh, Trey would be towards the top of this list for fun in an All-Star game.
Exactly. So
I
just do
mean,
it. Who cares? Exactly. All-Star games are not as serious as all NBA to me. I think all NBA and end of year awards are the ones you take really super seriously into account, team success, advanced analytics, but for the All-Star game, bet you can bend it a little. That's it's safe to me.
call me crazy here though. Like DeJounte Murray is close to as important as Trey has been to that team, and so he kind of takes away a little bit to me. because
I
you could,
think I think the counting stats, which usually don't matter as much to me for all NBA as team success does, matter more here. Trey has crazy, what, 27 and 10? That's it. That's the argument. 27 and 10.
yeah. No, I treat it like, and I'm okay with that. Just for excitement purposes and what you want. I mean, again, I go back to, I like to treat it like all NBA, and that's kind of how I go about it. Um, I think I think realistically, I think they want a center. I think they'll choose Bam over one of these guards. Um, the only other argument I could see, the players we haven't mentioned, would be Scotty Barnes. I just think his time will come. I think he's too inconsistent right now. You can argue he's a better player than Paolo. You can argue maybe value wise to Julius Randle, but again, I'm not a person that likes to anoint players too quickly, and this league is too talented, too deep. I'm giving their nod when they earned it, and I feel very, very concrete in my Eastern Conference, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think Paolo, Bam, and Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam are the four guys that deserve shouts for having just missed it. Kristaps as well. But those are the guys that
Pascal's,
you got to be comfortable cutting. What's up?
yeah, I'm like the biggest Pascal guy ever, and my thing with him is you've been around in the league long enough where winning matters by now. Like if you're not leading a team to wins, and your record's got to be a little more in tune to your statistics. And so if he was in Indiana all year at the record now, yeah, I'd probably give him the nod, but couldn't do it. Have been falling off a bit too. That's why you could talk me into keeping Paolo off
It's
this.
a season long thing though. It's a season long thing. I think even considering the hot start to the year for the Magic, I would leave Paolo off because that team's bread and butter is defense, right? And he's their offensive leader for sure. But what are you gonna do? Give
Right.
Suggs the All-Star? Like that's not how it works.
All right,
Um, yeah.
two quick questions here. I mean, how big is the gap between Paolo and Franz for you
You mean as players or for their
as
All-Star
players?
cases?
No, as players. Sure, you can tie it to All-Star
Today,
right
the
at this
gap
moment.
doesn't appear that large. Why? Because
Yeah.
Franz gets to benefit from the defensive attention that Banchero draws off of him. Franz also is just a straight up better defensive player. So when you take those two factors into account, you kind of get that argument where um, a lot of people would say OG Anunoby is a better player than Julius Randle, and they might be right, but it also, Randle's got two-time All-NBA credentials as a New York Knick, and Anunoby's always playing offensively off of other people, but brings the defense to the table. So it's a similar conversation to me, just conceptually, even if not for the caliber of players that we're talking about. I think Paolo's definitely a better player than Franz, but I don't think there's any huge gap right now. I think Franz is close to being as good as Paolo because of the other end of the floor and because he goes up against weaker defenders who just he gets to feast on. And think about it, going forward, that's probably going to be his role. So you got to take that into account.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I don't think there's a large gap, but I mean, there's a clear 1-2 pecking order, just seeing how it plays out down the stretch too, and who they're relying on. But also, I mean, you would think as this team got better, has gotten better, and I don't think he's gotten much better outside of defensively a little bit. I mean, his decline from 2 point range from 49 to 46, and from three, about the same volume as last year from 36 to 30%, and that's pretty concerning for me, even though I still believe in his shot long term. And then the other question I had for you is Jaylen Brown and Kristaps. I mean, value wise, you just think Kristaps does more defensively, is more the anchor, or you like him offensively too?
Funnily enough, you look at the EPM on dunks and threes. Kristaps has a higher offensive EPM this season than Jalen, and Jalen has a higher defensive EPM this season than Kristaps. So I guess not the results you'd expect, but Jalen plus something like a plus 2.1 EPM and like a plus 1.50 DEPM and a plus 1.5 O EPM. He's just like very consistently solid on both ends. He's really that like number two guy behind Jason Tatum. And he's got the games played, so you give Brown the nod for the All-Star game. But for me, like if you asked me, okay, Boston Celtics have game seven tomorrow. They need to sit out one of Brown or Kristaps. Like one of them is going to miss the game. I would keep Kristaps on the court. I'd pick him over Brown for the Boston team. I think he's
What a
that bad.
crazy scenario.
I think yeah. I mean, I know
I
it's a
love
crazy
it.
scenario. It's for the sake
I
of
love it.
crazy scenarios make you make tough decisions. If one's got to sit
That's how
out
you came to.
randomly, I would actually like if like gun to my head, I would pick Kristaps. So I think he's more valuable on
But
the court
but if it's a 7-game series, you're choosing Jalen Brown because you still don't trust Chris Stapps to make it all the
to
way through.
play 7 games. That's funny. I'll bet on my fellow KP there.
Exactly.
But nah, I think that Porzingis is the better basketball player. I think he's had the better season, but he's played way fewer games, and the Celtics have been really good. And you got to just give the All-Star nod to Brown, even if you think it belongs to someone else. I think to me, they're still both on the Celtics, so it's really not a crime.
Yeah, as much as I like Jalen Brown, I mean, Chris Stapps fits with anybody and everybody. I personally believe if he got a decent coach. Um, I mean, he was better than most people say in Dallas, but I mean, a lot of I just didn't like what they did with him from a coaching standpoint, and the set. And it was Luka's early career too, just getting going, and so I don't put too much fault on Chris Stapps there, but the fit is so much better than Jalen Brown in Boston, so I'll give you that for sure. Should we move to the West?
Yeah, man, let's move to the West. How do you want to do this? You go
Uh,
with the starters, and then we'll each give our guards. Let's do that.
all right, so who is it? It's SGA, Luka, LeBron, KD, Jokic, right? Did I
Yep.
say five?
Yep.
Okay. So personally, I don't think LeBron, I'm just going to start off with this. I don't think LeBron should have made a team, period. I think the fact that he's getting grandfathered in because he's a captain is bullshit. Um, West is too good right now. It's incredible how many guys deserve to get in. And I want LeBron to be in the All-Star game. Don't get me wrong. I think the team should be 15 deep, first of all. I've been saying it for years, and this is the first point. So LeBron being in and being grandfathered in as a captain just takes away somebody more deserving, in my opinion. You asked me last week or 2 weeks ago, it was Anthony Davis over LeBron for which Laker makes the team easily for me. To be honest, this last week, LeBron's looked so much better than Anthony Davis, especially when it matters. And it's like, God, I wish I would have said LeBron last week, but I mean, it's how things changed between these two guys. I think LeBron now, like, yeah, I'm at fault here for flip-flopping a week. I'm sorry because I was on a pod last week and said the opposite, but I think LeBron is more deserving than Anthony Davis to be the lone Laker on the teams now. But now that LeBron made the team, I don't think Anthony Davis should make the team. So he's off. I thought they deserve one Laker, if any. But the other one, KD, man, I mean, he's great numbers wise, sure. But we got to have higher expectations for Kevin Durant, too. I mean, him and Booker have been pretty healthy for most of the year. And he's definitely taken a huge step back defensively, even though that doesn't really matter for most people at the All-Star game. Kawhi Leonard deserves his flowers. I think he's been incredible. It's just the likability factor from KD and Kawhi is insane. I mean, there's such a gap. Nobody will ever give Kawhi his credit whenever he retires. I mean, it's crazy how good this motherfucker is. I just can't get over it. Like he's playing at a top 3 player in this league level right now, and Kawhi at his
Yep.
peak, you can argue as good as anybody in the league right now. Besides Jokic, I would say.
Yeah, I agree, man. He's a really good player. I never sold the stock. I remember saying in the offseason, I still think he's top tier before the Harden trade. After the Harden trade, he's top tier. This is a top tier NBA player. He's so good. And him and Paul George are playing like every single game now. So, way to turn it around. For me in the Western Conference, um, I agree with your takeaways. I think both KD and LeBron are reputation over reality at this point. I don't think Kevin Durant's the best player on his team. I think the best player on his team was not made a starter. So that is how it goes nowadays. Dan
Hmm.
Lillard was a starter in the East. Same thing, right? Just it's name value. It's always going to be a big thing in fan voting, and when people don't watch every game of the season, no one expects anyone to watch every single game of the season. Like you have to defer to what you know, right? And what you know is some of these names dominating the NBA for 10 plus years. So I don't really fault anyone, right? But for me personally, let's start out with the guards in the Western Conference. It's no surprise I have Devin Booker there. Um, he is really good. He's got the counting stats. Again, team success, not a huge deal to me. He stepped into a different role this season, the one he kind of used to have back when the team stunk, and he's excelled at it. He's been really good. And again, the counting stats are there. The star factor is there. He's number one on my list for guards off the bench. My other guard spot goes to Zach's guy. Um, Changed his number to 5, but he's still number one on the Timberwolves. Anthony
Mm.
Edwards. That guy is really good at basketball. The Timberwolves are a really good team this season, and yeah, I didn't end up giving any other Timberwolves the nod, but I had to give Anthony Edwards the nod. That's what the All-Star game is about. Get your stars in. He's a burgeoning young star. Um, a team like the Timberwolves should definitely have an All-Star, and it's not a team success thing to me that much, so I'm not pressed to give them a second, right? But Ant's the guy. He should make it. So Booker and Edwards are the two guys I have at the guard spots. Zach, who are your two?
Yeah, so I also had Ant starting. Um, I had Luca, SGA, Ant, Kawhi, and Jokic as my starting five. So taking obviously KD and LeBron out, but obviously I think Kevin Durant is probably the better player. He absolutely is the better player, but Ant deserves this nod. I mean, just because I hold them both to a high standard, and Ant's been the
So
one
so you've got
leading his
Ant off
team
the
more.
bench then.
Yeah, so he's my first guy off the bench. So I have Ant. Booker was left off until LeBron made it. It was so hard because I'm a huge Booker guy. I love him. I thought he's was more valuable than KD for the team most of the year last year. Uh, but with LeBron making it, I moved AD off and put Booker in here. And so I got Ant, I got Booker, I got James Harden, I got De'Aaron Fox, and this is where it gets tough. Okay, I have. Oh, I mentioned. Well, basically, I've been mentioning Kawhi. So Kawhi would be number 5. Cat,
You're really just flying through it here.
yeah, Cat would be number 6. Okay, because I think the Timberwolves deserve 2 guys. And Cat,
Okay.
I mean, you can argue, man, like it takes a lot of hoops to jump through. It takes a lot of hoops to jump through, but you can argue Cat's been really close to being as valuable as Ant to this team. It's kind of I'd say it's as close as Franz and Paul, however close you want that to be. I think it's that close. They're like Jalen Brown and Chris Epps, even though I don't think that's close because the game's played. I'm just talking value wise to the team, but I'm an Ant guy. I think Ant's been the better player more often, more consistently. But I'm putting Cat in the game, and then the last one. This is tough, man. I just think it had to go to a center. I had to give it to somebody big here because I really just had Cat.
There's your center.
Yeah, I can get away with one. You think? legally, I'm gonna go Domantas Sabonis over Laurie, which is tough. I know that hurts your feeling, even though I'd prefer Laurie. I think Laurie's the better player. I don't know. I don't know. Can I go? Like I want to go Laurie over Devin Booker, really, and I'd like to do that. I just think the Wolves deserve two, even though my bias might come in there. But like the Timberwolves probably might not ever get this opportunity again to put two guys in this game. That's why like these last three spots for me are so hard. Like Laurie, Cat, and Sabonis. That's the debate for me. And the guys you can debate putting in over them are Paul George, and that would be it. Maybe Rudy Gobert over Cat.
All right. Well, let me give my Western Conference team. I'm just going to say it all at once because you decided to just let all your takes fly. I've got Devin Booker and Anthony Edwards in the guard spots, as we discussed. In the forward spots, I have the two guys that I thought were arguably deserving of the two starting spots, but I think just one of them should have started. Um, I have Kawhi Leonard, who I would have had starting. And my other forward spot goes to Paul George, who is beyond deserving of not just a wild card spot, but a locked in forward spot in this 2024 All Star game in Indianapolis. Paul George has had a great season this year. The counting stats are there, the advanced analytics are there. It's all there, and the team success is there. Literally, all the factors match up, even the smaller ones like team success. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are my two forward spots. Now, for the final two wild card spots, I took the term wild card to heart. I really didn't care about team success, and I just put who are easily the two best players that haven't made the team in the conference. De'Aaron Fox just missed it. Okay, I really wanted a Sacramento King on this team. No Sacramento Kings made my All-Star team. I know. I'm sorry. Like Sacramento fans, I am actually sorry. I love the Kings, but my final two spots go to Lauri Markkanen and to Stephen Curry. Now, those two spots were doled out because the two players they were given to are top NBA talents, top level NBA talents, both of them elite 3-point shooters. One of them, the greatest 3-point shooter of all time. The other one of two guys, 6'10 or higher, to be in the top 25 and 3-pointers made this season. The other being Michael Porter Jr. and Laurie, obviously the only 7-footer. So Laurie is really special. Um, and he's an all-star. He is an NBA all-star because he's so freaking good. And what people don't understand, I think, about the Utah Jazz offense is that Laurie is the 1A of that team. He's the top option. They just don't run actions through him the way that teams run dribble, crossover, screen, drive, kick. Like he's not a point guard. So they don't run action like that. And he's not a point forward like LeBron or KD or anyone else. So they don't run actions like that. But Laurie's easily the top option on that team. They're not a great team. Neither are the
Who
Golden
would be
State
the argument?
Warriors.
Who would be the argument of what they'd run like Colin Sexton? I mean, things run through Laurie.
Yeah, Laurie's the top option, even if it's
Yeah.
not traditional. So he's easily an all-star to me in that wild card spot. And then really the last spot, it was Laurie versus Fox. I had to give it to Laurie. He's had the better individual season. And then that leaves Fox, Curry, and AD for the final spot. Again, team success matters more for awards than for all-star. Steph is always a great show in the All-Star game. It stinks for AD. It stinks for De'Aaron. Again, it's just the All-Star game. Go make your All NBA case because that's the more important award. So that's who I've got.
Man, so why the hell do you have Steph Curry and Booker over Harden, man? Like he's been arguably the most valuable guy in the Clippers and definitely the second most valuable, if not the second best player as well, even
He
from advanced stat. It's
no,
like
not even from an
no,
advanced stat
dude,
perspective. Kawhi,
Steph Curry, one is my favorite player in the league, but two, he's 19 and 24. Why don't we hold standards for these all-time greats? Like winning matters.
we
You
do, but
have
he has the counting stats to justify putting him in an All-Star
and
game
Harden
that
doesn't. He's
has been
averaging a
his
double
show.
double
I
since
have two Clippers off the bench. I have two Clippers in this lineup. I'm not doing three.
To not have one Sacramento King and you have Steph Curry, man. Like Fox has been better than Curry. Like
I I think Fox has had a better season. I think that's not necessarily what I think the All-Star game is about. Like you got to prioritize fun and you got to prioritize star power. Fox
I,
would deserve an All NBA spot. He would deserve everything over Curry. But bro, you take a look at analytically, right? Who is it you said had Paul George just has one of the top analytical cases
Harden's
in
better.
the
Global rating,
NBA.
LeBron.
Global rating isn't
Um,
a good, that's not a real stat.
I like it. I think it's
Oh,
solid.
okay. A stat that every NBA team uses is
But I've
EPM,
watched
right?
every game too, and
Paul
Paul
George
George has
has a
throws
plus
up too many
five.
duds.
He has a plus 5.2 EPM. That's 98th percentile in the entire NBA. James Harden plus 4.4. That's 96th percentile. We're splitting hairs here. These are elite players. But when you take a look at an analytical stat that 30 out of 30 NBA teams employ when it comes to making decisions with their roster, George is only behind Donovan Mitchell, LeBron, Hallie, Doncic, Jokic, Giannis, SGA, and Embiid. George is the ninth best EPM in the NBA this season. Booker's
Good,
right behind him.
good.
Then
I mean,
then
I've
after
watched
Booker,
every
it's
game,
it's
and there's
Brunson, Kristaps, Markkinen. It's like these are the top guys.
just Paul George has had too many duds compared to Harden, and he runs the show there. I mean, he's put those guys in positions to succeed, and the fact that we're gonna give Steph Curry at 19 and 24, or Book, who they just started turning on now after voting started. Um, yeah, it just doesn't sit right with me. But
So
I
so
mean,
here's the thing. You want to go back to
like here's
George
the
and
thing.
Harden.
One last thing. If I wanted it based on fun, I'd have Steph, I'd have Zion in here. I'd probably have Chet in the game too. Maybe let's see who else.
So that would be the all fun team.
Trey Young.
I think everything is yeah, I have Trey. I think there are
Yeah,
different
I know,
factors.
but like there's so many guys that are deserving that are so close. So we got to have a stipulation and give the guys that have earned it from a winning. They play to win the game. And yes, Steph, how his season's going, he obviously wouldn't say very good. Um, and it's just tough. I mean, yeah, I'd love to have an award where these guys, if you say if you hit 10 All-Star games, you're just grandfathered in forever. You know, like Dwayne Wade and um fucking Dirk Nowitzki a few years back. They had two spots that didn't even count. Like that's what LeBron and Steph Curry should have right now. Are two spots that don't count towards the total. And then you got guys like Cat being left off, Laurie Markkinen maybe. It's just the league is too good and too deep right now, and that leads me to like talking about these 70 per point performances. It's like, yes, there's some bad defense being played, but the league is more talented than ever right now from a depth perspective. You can argue the top talent. Would you agree to that?
I I always think the league gets more talented as time goes on. So sure, yeah.
Like depth or just at the top too?
Everything.
Okay.
I
See,
think the top
I think
players
you can
are
argue
the top players
like
are
the
always
top
going to
10.
be about as good as each other as eras go on.
That's
But
fair.
over its big stretches like the 60s to now, big difference. The stars today are way better.
Yeah. Like, so I'd say like the top 100 or 200 players are so much better than the top 200 players from 5, 10, 20 years ago, whatever. But like the top 5 to 15 guys, that's where you can argue from like era to era.
Word. Well, listen, man, for me it was team success was maybe like 15%. Um just counting stats and a healthy mix between counting stats and analytics was like 70%. And the last, what do I have left? Like 15% left was like star factor. Like how big of a star are you? You know, Curry and Trey getting in for that reason, pretty much. on top of their counting stats. Like you had to have at least two of those factors, and it was basically you have to either have the counting stats and the analytical profile and the star factor or the team success. And I tried to care more about star factor because it's the all-star game, but just being good, having a good statistical profile, good analytical profile, being good at basketball was my main qualifier for this. I think the guys I picked, Brunson, Mitchell, Brown, Randall, Maxey, Young, Booker, Edwards, Leonard, George, Markin, and Curry are all like some of the top 25, 35 guys and top 25 to 30 guys in the NBA. Like I don't think I picked anyone that is not a top 25, 30 guy in the NBA. So that's that for me. Like it's that simple. I tried to pick top guys like Derek White, awesome story, not an all-star for me. Etc.
Yeah, I think the one I'm most okay with is like Lori and Sabonis. Like, argue going either way there. I mean, the other ones I definitely have a bigger deal with. I mean, what would you say about Brandon Ingram and Zion though? That's the last thing I really want to touch on because to me, it's just those guys are so close. The team is they fall. I mean, last week when you asked me, I think they deserved one. They're falling to the 8 seats. They're in the play-in. Like it's not like they're winning should get them in there. And neither one of them, I mean, are better than any of the guys we're mentioning. So that's that's like what the deal breaker for me is. But it's tough to leave out an 8 seed or 26-21 guys
Uh,
that are
you give the nod to Ingram. I think the counting stats, the assists are really there for him. His counting stats are better. Analytically, him and Williamson are about the same offensively. Williamson a zero defensively, 63rd percentile on defensive EPM, but Ingram 72nd. So a slight nod there to Ingram on the defensive end of the floor when they're about the same on offense this year. But I also think the fact that they're about the same on offense this year is a testament to Ingram in itself, right? He's taken that role of that top playmaker role pretty much next to McCollum in the starting lineup. It's all kind of working now. And yes, CJ is a negative on defense, but he's been really good on offense this season, and I'll give you that. I know you like him, so um, you go Ingram there. But I just
who would you
they didn't make my
who
cut
would who would you take off if you had to take one of those guys on your team? Who would you take off?
for Ingram.
Yeah,
You got
gun
to
to your
go.
head, right?
You got to go with Curry, right?
There we go. I'll take that.
All right. Anything else from you, my man, about,
Why no Cat? Just because Paul George over Cat and just
Paul George
too
is
much of a
just
no-brainer
so
for you?
it's too much of a no-brainer for me. The guys that I had over Cat. It's not even some like anti-Cat thing. He's had a nice year. He's not a defensive minus by any means analytically. He's had a really nice offensive season analytically, but if that's the criteria, then Sabonis deserves it over Cat. And it's the All-Star game, so team success isn't as big of a factor to me. So if that's who I was going to go
That's
with, I would go with Sabonis, but I actually didn't put either on my team, so you shouldn't take it as some slight to Cat.
all right. What about Cat or Rudy?
I want to
Who's
go Rudy, man.
That's fair. That's fair.
I want to
I
go
think it's
Rudy,
that
but
close.
I think you could convince me really easily to just go Cat. And if I were taking that approach to my All-Star team, then it would be Cat, right? So that's what it would be, is it would be Cat.
Like it's crazy how many games Rudy's saved for the Wolves and won them. Like last night in OKC was an incredible Rudy performance. Just made me worry about OKC come playoff time and their size. But
I don't blame you. Listen, I think that OKC is like I told you, they're gonna have to go through some fire. They're gonna have to go through the fire of the trials and failures and kind of mature a little as a unit. And then we'll see them make another acquisition and be geared up for like a huge contending run. I just don't think we're there this season. Maybe they surprise me, right? Maybe we're in the conference finals and OKC is
oh,
is up 3-1 on someone and I'm going, holy crap, Chet's so good. Shea is the MVP and the finals MVP. But I don't think it's this year. I don't think it's this year.
yeah, I truly think the Wolves and the Thunder are both two of the worst, best teams ever. Like, and that's just because they're youth and the Thunder play way better together as a team. But the Wolves just talent, man. The talent's just prevail. Like it's crazy. We've been the 20th in defense like the last 10, 15 games, and we're still just pulling out all these good wins. Doesn't make no damn sense, man. Doesn't make no sense. We'll see if it holds on for a little longer, but I'm gonna enjoy it.
Absolutely. Well, we'll have you covered here on all things NBA throughout this all. Make sure to like, thumbs up, rate 5 stars, subscribe, whatever it is you can do where you're listening or watching. Thumbs up, do it. Make sure to put on our notifications on YouTube so you don't miss an episode. Stay tuned here on All Things NBA. We'll have you covered. So, presented by Ballislife, for Zach Noble, I'm Chris Persiani saying so long. See you next time.